you had a moment after the pick six where you're like, uh-oh, Will Howard's got a case of the whoopsie daisies.
Mm-hmm.
A record crowd is going absolutely bonkers. This could be bad for the Buckeyes. And the funny thing is, Will Howard kept the whoopsie daisies. He didn't lose them, but he delivered just enough plays, and Penn State failed in so many scoring opportunities, or enough scoring opportunities, that the Buckeyes end up winning this thing 20-13. Tom, again, lots to unpack about the after, how we go with this. James Franklin and his latest beef. Yeah. I roll for those listening at home, of course, from Tom Fornelli. But just in terms of the game itself, what were some of the big like pivot points for you in what was like a true back and forth kind of heavyweight fight?
If you're a Penn State fan, how in the hell are you supposed to believe you're ever going to beat Ohio State at this point?
Oh my God.
Why
Because,
should you believe that?
Yeah, I mean, let's look at the situation. Ohio State did not play well. Like, defensively, they played well. Offensively, they didn't play that great. You're coming into this game, you're at home, it's early, which, by the way, I didn't like having this game early. I don't know if we're allowed to talk about that kind of stuff. But you come into this game, it's at home. You get the field goal, you get a nice drive to open up, but kind of a bad omen is that you have this great 14-play drive to start, and you have to settle for the field goal because you can't finish it. But you get the lead, and then Will Howard throws that pick six, a great play by Zion Tracy. I don't think that was a bad throw by Howard. I think that was just Tracy making a spectacular play, knowing what was coming, figuring out, getting it, and making it. So now you're up 10 points. The crowd's going crazy. Their offensive line is still in shambles. Like, you've got your defense, you're going to be doing all this stuff, and you still lost. Like, you blew the 10-0 lead against a wounded Ohio State team at home. They outscored you 20-3 from that point on. And the defense, for all, it didn't have an incredible game, but overall, Penn State defense played well. Like, Abdul Carter had a couple sacks. They had 6 tackles for loss. They had 3 sacks overall. They held them, they completely took away the running game for the most part. Ohio State had a couple of big runs, like Judkins had the 20-something run, but other than that, they really weren't that effective on the ground. But your offense, you go out in the offseason and you go get Andy Kotelnicki from Kansas, right? Because we need to fix our offense. It's been a problem all year. There were signs, or for years. There were signs early in the year that things were fixed, but they've been kind of the last couple of weeks. You come into this game, you get 270 yards of offense, all right? You have 3 red zone trips. You end up with 3 points.
Yeah.
You call that play on 4th and goal where it's like Tyler Warren has been your best offensive player all season long. Maybe not Nick Singleton, but I'm saying as far as in the passing game, Tyler Warren is your best player. He's your weapon. You don't get the ball in his hands nearly enough. You only target him 5 times, then he had 3 carries. And then in that 4th down, you don't throw the ball to him. You design a play to go to a guy who's surrounded by 4 defenders. Like, and by the way, you have an offensive lineman going in motion. Like, Andy Kotelnicki talked about in the press conference this week about how his offense is just a vanilla blizzard. It's just got some swirls in it. You didn't need to put those swirls in it. Like, there's no need for that. It reminds me of the Bears last week when they handed off to their backup center on the goal line. Like, that's just a little too cute in a key moment when you're trying to win probably the biggest football game that you've been trying to win in a very long time. So you beat yourself. The offense does absolutely nothing. On the Ohio State side, there was the pick six. There was the Will Howard fumble through the goal line. Like, there were all the reasons for Ohio State to be like, oh, God, we're going to blow this game. We're going to blow our season. We're going to lose. But they hung in, man. Like, say what you want about them. They are not – I don't think they're incredible. I don't think this team's going to win a national title. Just based on what I've seen from them, I think they make too many mistakes. But then it's, at the same time, plenty of teams make mistakes this year. But they were like, that was mentally tough to do that in that environment, to have all those mistakes and overcome them and win the game, and for your defense to make the plays that they made when they did to keep, Penn State out of the end zone. Like the interception by Igbinison at the end of the first half was incredible.
Oh, it was amazing.
Dude, like, All credit to Ohio State for doing what you have to do. Like, you are the better team. You're not a great team, but you're definitely a better team than Penn State, and I think we've proven it at this point for 8 straight years now, and like I said at the very start, if Penn State can't beat Ohio State today with those turnovers, with the injuries, with the early 10-0 lead, they're never gonna beat Ohio State. It's like there's no reason to think it's gonna happen.
I agree with most of that. I will push back on a little bit though. One, I don't have a problem with the offensive lineman going in motion. Like they did it against USC. They've done it a couple other times this year in crucial situations, and it did work. Like I think you got to be who you are, and I think they did try to get the ball to Warren on the fourth down. Ohio State saw it coming and covered it really well, and they also managed to cover the other options, which is kind of where I want to go with this. You had 5 targets to receivers. We talked about this on the CBS Sports Network Big Game Breakdown. Like, would Ohio State be able to play more of the style of defense that Jim Knowles probably prefers to play against Penn State than it did against Oregon, because Oregon's receivers can really make you pay, whereas Penn State's kind of cannot. I mean, they had 5 targets to receivers total, and I know Warren is obviously a great receiving target, and he should be their target leader. But I mean, 5 targets for 50 yards to receivers is just not going to get it done. Probably, like, you have to have the ability to attack Ohio State on the outside a little more than they did. I thought Drew Aller was just kind of not great, like missed some
Well,
stuff.
he was early when they were using him as like that. It felt like Andy Kotelnicki kind of emptied the bag a little bit,
Yeah,
and you just had no offensive touchdowns there for a little while to show for it. Like that was the thing that was alarming to me. It's like, congratulations, you got all these yards, you had all these great like Drew Aller runs, and everything was looking good early, but still the offense to a certain point in the game had 0 offensive touchdowns.
Just pushing back a little bit though on the offensive lineman. What purpose did he serve on the play? Ohio State wasn't trying to cover him.
that's fair.
I mean,
Yeah,
he ran and he blocked a guy on a passing play. I mean, and I guess it was an RPO, so he's got to, seal off the edge there in case they hand it off. But it just allowed Ohio State to put an extra guy on Warren because they didn't have to worry about throwing to the offensive lineman. It's like, okay, if you want to give him the ball, give him the ball.
I think they generally do it because it helps with the run stuff, and they probably thought Ohio State would buy on some of the run fake stuff there. But I was also pretty impressed by Chip Kelly in this game at times. Like, that was a real difficult task he had to scheme up around the offensive line issues that Ohio State was probably going to have. We talked a little bit about, like, 10 minutes ago, how Clemson did not have that many tackles for loss against Louisville. I thought there was some really nice mitigation of the offensive line issues that Ohio State was likely to have by Kelly in this ballgame. And specifically, like, some of the passes to the backside of the backfield I thought were well designed. Some of the crossers. Brandon Ennis coming up big for these guys. I know he didn't lead the team in receiving, but I feel like every time I looked up and on the quad box, like, okay, there's Brandon Ennis making another catch. Like, cool. It's good to know he's still around. He's still working and developing. And Howard's not great, but he's not terrible. And he ran hard when they needed him to. There were 2 big runs late in the game. The one to get him down there in the 1st and goal, and the other one to basically put the game away and run the clock out. Ohio State just looks a little bit better than Penn State. And we're probably having a different conversation. Like, I don't think it's a referendum on Penn State necessarily that you sucked in the red zone, man. That's going to happen. Like, 3 trips, 3 points. That's god awful. There's also some variance in that. It sucks, but like, I know, but like, I mean, if they play this game again tomorrow, they're probably scoring more points in the red zone. They may not get the pick 6 though. Ohio State was the better team. They deserved to win. The way it played out, there was some kind of fluky stuff, I guess, there at times. But
hey, listen, and that's fair for when we adjust our power ratings. But when we talk about this season, the play was the play. The game was the game. Like, that's like, you were going to be defined by your failures of having the ball inside the 5-yard line and like not being able to get touchdowns.
One minor correction, by the way. You called him Chip Kelly. His name is Chipper the Ripper. All right.
Apparently.
I don't know if you heard that during the game, but he's Chipper the Ripper, and he designs plays for Jeremiah Money on the Rise Smith. Okay.
This might surprise you. I did not have the sound on that game.
Our colleague Richard Johnson was with me in Ann Arbor, and he was saying that, like, both of those, to your point about the scheme, that both of the first half touchdowns were the exact same play, just delivered. Like, Chip was just in his bag. He just figured out like the things that were breaking down Tom Allen's defense. And then it was like, okay, so this time we'll go this way and this time we'll go this way. And that is an encouraging, I would say more encouraging for Ohio State than unsettling for Penn State, but encouraging for Ohio State that your big splashy offensive coordinator hire showed up in a game that only had 33 total points. 14 of them were just schemed wide TF open by your offensive coordinator.
Very TF.
Huh? What'd you say?
I had more notes on this.
I said that's why you pay him.
Yeah. Are you ready to get into like the fallout?
Yeah.
So
will there be fallout?
Listen, fallout is about fan feelings more than administrative action.
I don't think fan feelings changed.
You don't?
No, I think the fans already felt that way. Like the Penn State fans I know, I don't think the result of anything that happened today changed their minds about anything.
You don't think that if Penn State had beat Ohio State 28-20, they wouldn't have...
That would have changed it. But
right.
This result losing, I don't think changes anything.
Look, if they continue, we're not going to have fallout tomorrow, right?
No. I mean,
so if they continue to win and play well, like they have played well for most of the season, then they're going to go what, 10-2 or 11-1?
Correct.
They're going to make the playoff, which they have not done under James Franklin so far. Obviously, it's a 12-teamer, not a 4-teamer.
And they're probably going to host a playoff game.
Yeah, if you host a playoff game and you're Penn State, zip it. All right. To me, like that's kind of the ceiling of that program, unless they show me some reason to believe otherwise. Like they're not out there with the top 10 NIL budget, I don't think. Right? Like they're not. They don't have a great recruiting base there. They got great fans, great tradition. I think they develop players well. If they find a way to host a playoff game, I don't want to hear a damn thing. You lost to Ohio State. You ain't Ohio State, man. I never expect Penn State to beat Ohio State. Why should I? Just because they're due for some reason? Or did I miss that Ohio State doesn't have better players than them now? I don't want to hear it. It's cool, but I get it because it's fandom, right? You want to believe that there's more possible, and there probably is in a given year. But like Chip said, maybe this should have been the year, and it wasn't.
So
I will say, like, you look at the rest of their schedule, they get Washington next week, then they're at Purdue, whatever. But then they're at Minnesota. Like, they might lose another game or two.
They could lose to Minnesota.
Yeah, they could lose to Washington.
They could lose to Washington. I don't think
probably
they
not
will,
but
but
they
they could.
Home,
Yeah.
But they could.
Yeah. So we're not going to make anything out of James Franklin getting chesty with the fans?
Oh, we can talk about that. I'm just talking about, like, the expectations fallout, kind of. I thought you meant, like, fans are going to want him fired. It's like,
no,
they've already wanted him fired.
No, because James Franklin getting chesty with the fans is a thing. It is an item. It is something that has been clipped, aggregated, posted. It is part of the headline stack. It is part of the overall analysis. The deep thoughts you get from Tom Fornelli, but the be a real man, tell me your name, to fans that are talking trash to you as you're trying to walk off the field is some raw behavior from the Penn State head coach. And we'll see if he addresses it,
I get it. Like, it's a huge game. You lost. You're pissed off. I'm not going to blame James Franklin for being pissed off. But you got to just ignore it. I know it's probably a lot more difficult, but you got to just ignore it. Like, just walk through the tunnel, get to the locker room. There's no need for that. And again, like you said, this isn't the first time it's happened. So just, I don't know, man. Show, if you want your players to be disciplined, show some yourself.
If there's it's because that is a thing that we have the larger conversation about fans. Because my position on this is that the Penn State administration loves 10 wins. The Penn State administration loves record crowds. The Penn State administration loves the 12-team playoff and the opportunity that provides Penn State to continually with this program and the consistency that James Franklin has created have a shot at a national championship in the way that they did not have a shot in the 14 playoff format. Because as we've said so many times, in the 10 years of the 14 playoff, we project that if it had been a 12-team playoff, Penn State would have 6 playoff appearances. So there is a high floor for the James Franklin Penn State program. But the shortcomings of 8 straight losses to Ohio State and the inability to win the Big Ten going all the way back to that 2016 season have started to pile up and have started to create a little bit of fan frustration. Is that fair? I don't know. I'm not going to tell fans how to feel. That's different fan bases have different expectations. But the administration is totally cool with this. And but one last thing, we just saw a head coach in a revenue sport leave what is widely viewed as one of the best jobs in the entire sport, not because the administration was unhappy, but because the fans just got sick of him. And he had won a national championship, and he was continually one of the best in his conference. And he left. And I just wonder if we've got a John Calipari situation starting to bubble up with James Franklin.
That's interesting. The one thing I would say about this before you do kind of fundraise off the bigger goals, though, right? Not a lot of people are fired up about donating to go 10-2 every year, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like you fundraise booster dollars and NIL dollars by selling hope, even if you don't truly believe it yourself. Like, it doesn't really matter if James Franklin really thinks Penn State can win a national title, right? They're going to fundraise off it, and he's going to coach with that goal in mind. And maybe they go 10-2 or 11-1 along the way. You can't. I think that's the reason you can't do this too, right? Like that's what I wanted to add. Sorry.
So you're just kind of saying, like, we're going to hear his name floated for the Florida job, and if he gets offered the job, you're saying maybe he takes it.
That if Lincoln Riley runs off to the NFL and late in the cycle,
why is the NFL hiring Lincoln Riley at this point, though?
I don't know.
They've already got all the coaches who know how to do that.
Didn't Kingsbury get hired? And
yeah, but that was
the best thing he did.
That was before the NFL really knew that offense. I feel like they know it now. Like, I feel like the NFL has better offenses than what Lincoln's running.
Fair, but I don't know if it's going to happen this cycle. I don't want to allege that we're like on the immediate edge of that, because obviously the Cal situation was multiple seasons over, and like the most recent of the many early NCAA tournament exits was kind of what like really started to have that thing catch fire. So, and you know, I don't know if James Franklin has a chicken empire that he can tap into to be able to kickstart his next job opportunity. So they're like, I don't want to draw a direct correlation, but I do think that was one of those things. Like, if you were to just write it down, that the sitting head coach of Kentucky who won a national championship in men's basketball was going to leave that program, like, why? When all of the wins and losses had been there in NCAA tournament appearances and high finishes in the conference.
Wasn't Calipari in danger of getting fired soon?
I don't think he was actually in danger of like for real getting fired.
I don't think Franklin's in any real danger. I feel like if
right.
He leaves,
I agree.
Only just because he wants to start over somewhere. Like, he's looking for a fresh start.
Right. James Franklin for Florida State.
That's not. I mean,
I don't think they're going to make a move there.
I'd be
pretty shocked.
That'd be a lot of money right now.
All right.